What is going on out there, peeps? Well, today is the big day. We're finally going to get out there and vote on this 2022 midterms. Already, we're seeing tons of news articles of problems and questionable ballots. It didn't take very long. We're seeing people go to court. John Fetterman in Pennsylvania, there's no way in how he should win. But all of a sudden, there's about 60,000 ballots that came in with no date on them. Nothing from the post office with the post date on there. And he is going to court to fight to have those ballots counted. Anyways, I wanted to introduce to you this lady here. Her name is Kristina Karamo. And I think people need to hear what she has to say. I think it's important before you go out there to vote. She is running for office, but it's what she's talking about that's shocking. And when you listen to her, you'll understand why. Her responses are quick, clear, precise. There's no and, or, none of those types of things. Which means to me that she's really thought everything through, and that's why she's able to give such smooth answers. Before we get started, do me a favor, hit the thumbs up button. If you're not a subscriber, please do so, because when you do, it helps out the channel, and I certainly do appreciate it. If you're thinking about buying gold and silver, go to our friends over at Money Metals Exchange. The link is down below in the description. If you're a first-time buyer and you spend more than $100, use promo code Pimpy, P-I-M-P-Y, and you will get a free half ounce of silver. So Kristina is running for Secretary of State in, of all places, Michigan. If somehow magically Governor Whitmore wins, this ought to be an interesting pair should Kristina win. But listen to what she has to say. I think you guys would be very interested.
You are one of the few people in a state race who really had no experience in doing what they're running to do beforehand. So I'm curious if you can tell me your story. What made you decide to want to run? What has prepared you for this role over the course of your life and your career?
Yeah, so my background is in education, and I have a master's in Christian apologetics. So to your point, I'm not one of these individuals who was groomed for public office. I'm just an everyday citizen who saw an issue and was determined to fix it. And during the 2020 election, I saw many things that were illegal, and it's really kind of disappointing that many citizens such as myself who came forward saying things that we personally witnessed. You know, it's one thing to have a second or a third hand account, but when things you've personally witnessed and you have this really coordinated effort to discredit it, it made me realize that we were fighting for something that was critical, is the control over our country. And as we've done over 350 events, I've talked to citizens all around the state of different political affiliations who have concerns regarding our election system. Like I talked to citizens in the city of Pontiac concerned about the District 7 city council race during the 2021 city election, or during the 2022 primary election, how during the Wayne County canvass, they discovered the city of Ecorse had a bag of untabulated ballots. Now, pointing those things out does not make one a threat to democracy.
Exactly. But the media and their sycophants will have you believe that if you question it, you're not patriotic, or you're one of those election deniers.
That's nonsense. Those who are parroting those phony talking points simply want to suppress citizens from telling the truth. When it comes to what has prepared me for this moment, I mean...
And we run into that on YouTube. You can't express your opinion like you should. They violate our free speech. There's no reason for us not to be able to come out and speak about our opinions on what happens, whether it's with the jab, whether it's with voting or anything else. It's just our opinions. But when you have people like this that can give you firsthand testimony and they're being censored or removed or silenced, then that's when it becomes a problem, because then they control the narrative. So why? Why are they silencing people who have firsthand knowledge, who are witnesses? Anybody posting any kind of evidence contrary to what we're being told, why are we being silenced?
Background in conflict resolution, but the reality is this, is that as Secretary of State, let's also step back for a moment. None of the Secretary of States when first starting have ever been a Secretary of State. Benson was never a clerk. The reality is that as Secretary of State, it's your job to put together teams of competent individuals and know how to problem solve. There's a formula to problem solving that occurs whether you're Secretary of State or whether you're an engineer. There's a formula to problem solving. There's a formula to team building. And also, when it comes to team building, you, Secretary of State, are not going to be on the ground necessarily solving all these problems. It's about putting competent individuals together who can give you a feedback loop of what's going on within its respective, whether it's the branch offices, whether it's our elections, whether it's the public notaries. And that way you know what's going on, and then you can solve those problems. And then you have the administrative oversight to make sure that they have the tools they need to be successful.
Sure. I know people throw around the term, right, political outsider. Is that something that you view yourself as, again, having never held office before running? Is that something that you maybe lean into? Or not?
Yeah, well, yeah, absolutely, because people want a fresh set of eyes. During the primary, I heard a lot of people say to me, we don't want a retread, because unfortunately, many people in public office, not all, of course, many people in public office have never really worked in the private sector. You look at Senator Debbie Stabenow, Joe Biden, they've never had a job in the private sector. They don't know what it's like to be on the other side of a government decision. So oftentimes we have people in office who do not live with the consequences of the policies that they create, and they just benefit from them. So oftentimes citizens want a person who's been on the other side of that SOS desk, a person who's been on the other side of witnessing something illegal in our election system to be an advocate for them. And people are tired of elected officials with secret agendas.
She hit it right on the head. We are tired of people with secret agendas. The problem is more and more of them end up in public office. They're supposed to be servants. They're supposed to be dealing with our concerns. But then if you have a concern about what happened in the 2020 election, we're being smeared. You're being defamed. You're being silenced. Why would any American, I don't care where you stand politically, what American in their right mind would allow that? I don't think it should ever be okay for any political party to do that. Nor should we allow any of these companies and the media to continue to smear and silence those who have opposing opinions. And they say the reason why they're doing it is because it's misinformation. Well, how do we know if you're not letting us hear the other side?
I don't like being lied about. I don't like having my personal life picked apart and false claims being made about me, but we deal with it because we love our country. And irrespective of party, I do not care what your political affiliation is. Every citizen wants their voting rights protected, which consists of ballot access, ballot security, and preventing illegal ballots from being cast.
This is why I wanted to introduce you to her. All my friends out there in Michigan, please pay attention to this, because I think she's somebody that would do citizens from all political parties a great deal of a favor by being in office. She's there to serve the American people in America without an agenda.
Well, let's set the record straight on some of the things that, again, you people have said about it. I heard that a Michigan GOP chair, former chair, called it a delusional fantasy about the election being stolen from Donald Trump in 2020. Do you still have legitimate concerns about the 2020 election? And if so, again, what are they? I've heard your testimony again before the Senate Oversight Committee, but do you still have those same concerns?
Well, the things I personally witnessed were never resolved. So, of course, I have those concerns. But some, like that individual you referred to, he's just a vulgar person. And some people, they have their own secret agendas for being. So it's kind of bizarre, to be honest with you, that when citizens bring forth legitimate concerns, like, for example, Jocelyn Benson trying to get a case tossed out of court where they want her to simply remove dead people from the voter rolls. Or I've talked to a lot of people who have spouses who are non-citizens who are registered to vote. And this non-citizen, who's in the country legally, by the way, did not register themselves to vote. Pointing those things out are very legitimate.
They are legitimate, but why are people then being alienated? Why are they being smeared? Why are they being called a conspiracy person? Americans have to question this. They do a great job of dividing everybody because to most people, politics are like sports. You have your team and you want your team to win. And the media's been telling you that the people on the other side are the bad people. And it keeps us divided. Instead of people standing back and going, look, there is something wrong about this. No, because if your team's winning and you're happy about it and they're pushing your favorite agenda forward, then you don't care if they're doing it legally or illegally. And that's what's wrong with a lot of people in America right now.
That's not a conspiracy theory. And so what should concern Michiganders is why there's such a coordinated effort to suppress the truth.
Yes.
How many people are benefiting from this corrupted election system? And now we have put together this series, Benson's Dirty Deeds, where we are going after piece by piece by piece by piece by piece of something illegal or unethical she has done. Or when you look at the situation with Connect, when you think of a Michigan-based company potentially storing data and information from our elections on servers in China, and then Governor Whitmer recently gave this company $300,000 of our tax dollars.
Yeah, that's the thing that gets me. So China, we're being told, is our adversary. But it's amazing how they manufacture our motherboards for computers so they can spy on us, and the motherboards to our defense system, and that we have databases over there that store our personal private information. Why the hell are we storing those types of things over in China?
That doesn't make one a conspiracy theorist or a threat to democracy for pointing it out. Those suppressing the truth are the threat to our democratic process,
Yes.
not me for speaking up about it.
By that same token, after 2020, there were 250 audits, including one by the committee that he testified in front of. Wouldn't those investigations have found any widespread wrongdoing if it existed?
I'm so glad you asked that question. First, those audits were conducted by Jocelyn Benson. So in what universe does the person under suspicion get to investigate themselves?
Well, one was done by lawmakers.
Well, they actually didn't conduct an audit. They conducted an outcome-based investigation where they asked for the Attorney General to consider criminally investigating people alleging fraud in the election. Those individuals have no credibility in my estimation, and I do not care if they are Republican. Because anytime you ask for the...
She isn't just going after Democrats. She's saying politicians in general. She's a person who supports America's constitutional republic. And that's how all politicians should be. It's not about a political party. It's about this country and all the greatness that comes along with it. It's about the citizens that are here and the country that we built, that everybody around the world wants to be in, except for some reason, a strange portion of the Democratic Party thinks this country is crap. Well, you don't have to stay here. But she's right. She's pointing fingers at Republicans as well. So it isn't just Democrats. It's both political parties, as anybody in office should do.
The Attorney General to consider criminally investigating people for exercising my right of freedom of speech and my right to petition the government for a redress of grievances. After the 2016 election, we saw many Democrats allege fraud, say that Hillary Clinton really won. At no point did I think these people should go to jail or be criminally investigated. And as a matter of fact, because of that report, we have footage of Dana Nessel saying, quote, that I potentially committing a felony and could be criminally charged, end quote.
Because she questioned this election, there was somebody wanting to criminally charge her. Yeah, we've seen that in other states, that if you question the results, then you should go to jail. Rules for thee and not for me is always the mantra of the Democratic Party. Yeah, people forget in 2016, they went up and down the street crying that the election was rigged.
From our Attorney General. So now we're going to jail people for calling out government corruption? I don't care how bogus one thinks it is. That should scare every Michigander. No one should be afraid of going to jail for simply speaking truth about something that they think. I don't care if a person is saying something bogus, they still shouldn't go to jail for it. But even with those investigations, they even admitted in that report that their investigation was not exhaustive. So if your investigation is not exhaustive, you cannot make a dogmatic claim. And then they ignore many of the things that we complained about. And when we look at the fact from the Auditor General's report, they stated that Secretary Benson was not reconciling the QVF with the driver's license file. Additionally, they also cited, which I also found to be true talking to clerks across the state, that they could not understand how the risk-limited audit, she did not even follow her own audit manual.
Here's the thing that gets me. The Constitution tells us that our representatives must do everything it takes to make sure that every single American has confidence in our voting system. The American citizens instruct our representatives on what it is we want them to do. It literally states that in there. If you guys have not heard of a man named Dave Jose, I encourage you to go find him. I think it's Dave Loves Everyone on YouTube if they haven't removed him again. But he goes through the Constitution, both state and federal. He points out that these politicians should not be attacking the citizens or other politicians or anybody else that questions what happened in 2020. And the reason for that is it's our constitutional right that if we have concerns about what we witnessed, then their job is to do everything to make sure they reinstate confidence in the election. Not complain, not smear people, not call them loony, not try to arrest them. That's all bullshit. Okay? That's not what this is about. And the fact that we had so many politicians, both Republicans and Democrats, fighting any types of methods to review the ballots, to check them, to make sure they're legit, to make sure they were counted right, tells you that there's definitely a bigger agenda going on, whether people want to believe it or not. But those people should automatically be removed out of office. That's their job, is to make sure that the American people feel confident about the voting. Period. I don't want to hear, well, the vast majority of it. No, there's no vast majority. The fact that you got millions of people in each state questioning the results, that alone should be the reason why every single politician goes, look, let's do anything and everything that's necessary so that we can make sure that all Americans feel confident in the voting system and there's no shenanigans going on. And the fact that, again, like especially social media platforms silence us, that's ridiculous. You know, it doesn't make a difference what side of the spectrum, but it just makes me sick to see so many people being silenced and smeared, and you're being called a conspiracy person or a right-wing white supremacist, which is just ridiculous. This is why I wanted to introduce you to Christina, because listen to what she's saying. And to make it even more interesting, shh, she's a black woman. Uh-oh. They're not supposed to be talking like she is.
So let me point this out. As Secretary of State, if I'm overseeing a highly contentious election, I'm going to go through every check and balance I can legally do to ensure that not only things were ran accurately, the way the people of this state could be confident. Because one of the things that is necessary for us to be unified in our pluralistic society, that people have faith in our systems. But when citizens have issues and they're demonized, and then you don't even follow your own audit procedures.
Remember, in 2016, it was the Democrats complaining about the election. Nobody smeared them. Nobody called them conspiracy. Nobody called them left-wing activists. You know, none of those things. And in 2016, when they were complaining, I said, look, just do whatever it takes. Do an audit. Show them whatever they need to see so that they can feel confident in what we saw in the voting. Now, the reasons why the Democrats didn't push it as much as Republicans, that's because, let's just say, they didn't want the truth to come out. Not so much that Trump did win in 2016, but there was other shenanigans taking place, and they didn't want that truth to come out. So why didn't it push it so hard? But this time around, interesting.
You opt for a risk-limited audit, and as I alluded to the clerks a moment ago, the clerks of our state even stated themselves that they did not understand how inspecting a few ballots in some random precincts was going to affirm that election procedure had been properly followed. It makes no sense. So my question goes back, why the organized cover-up to suppress the truth? That is what should concern Michiganders.
Not just Michiganders, Americans, every single one of them. It doesn't make a difference if you like the politicians in office or not. That goes for everybody. If the people truly voted and that's who they want in office, this is how our democracy works. Fine, I'll accept the results. But if I have questions about them, then you should address them to make sure that my concerns and everybody else's concerns are addressed and that we feel confident in what we're seeing as the result. But that's not happening right now.
Perspective of political affiliation. And as we go across this state and we look at what's going on in Southfield, you have a woman continuing to run elections who is being indicted for election fraud crimes. You look at what happened in Genesee County, where you had a clerk clip a ballot seal. And citizens have been complaining amongst themselves for years about these issues. And this is why I will defeat Jocelyn Benson November 8th.
Yeah, but people shouldn't just complain amongst themselves. You really have got to go out there and make demands. You have to unite. You have to show up in large numbers. You have to demand that something be done. Again, it says in our constitutions that our representatives are supposed to meet with their constituents a minimum of once a month. And in there it says that the citizens will instruct. Listen to what I'm saying. They will instruct their representatives on what it is they need to do. Not what we, the citizens, need to do, but our representatives. And if they start making a fuss and refuse to do it, then you remove them out of office, impeach them, recall them. Stop sitting around complaining and saying, there's nothing I can do about it. You got to make a stand. And that goes for both sides of the political parties.
Do you have concerns about the upcoming November election as you did, similar to the ones you still have for 2020?
Oh, of course. Well, one, she refuses to clean up the voter registration database. There's a current lawsuit against her, which we held a press conference about her suppression of poll challengers. Poll challengers are not these adversarial figures that Jocelyn Benson tries to portray them to be. Poll challengers are the guardians on the ground, that I like to call them. These are citizens who are just overseeing the process. They're not going in there. I'm not saying there aren't some rogue individuals. I won't make that claim, because I'm sure any profession, any group, you're going to have a few people here and there who are not there for the right reason. I can't speak to the mind of every single individual. But overall, poll challengers are there to be the guardians on the ground to ensure that the election process is being followed accurately. That's not an adversarial figure. And then my opponent is falsely claiming that there will be violence, potentially violence and disruption on election day. And then she refuses to provide any police reports. Now, if there's all these threats to election workers' lives like she claims that there are, where are the police reports? Who are these potential assailants? If someone was threatening our election workers and our clerks, as Secretary of State, I would be making sure that the police were notified, that there would be investigations, that we will find these potential assailants. I would be all over it.
As any state secretary should do. Look, if employees of any kind are being threatened, there should be a report that's made, not ignored. And she's right. How come this person, our representative, has not provided proof? These police reports, because a lot of times we find out that they're full of crap. They're just lying. We hear about this all the time. The other thing that I have issues with that happened in 2016 is the left was paying provocateurs to show up at rallies and cause fights so they could be filmed, and then that film would be used to smear those on the right. You know, these types of actions taken by politicians and big money groups just to try to get their people in the office, I understand that's like the norm, but no, it shouldn't be accepted at all. Not at all.
Not just making claims in the media. And then on top of that, her edict that she issued regarding poll challengers' rights for the 2022 election is illegal. I'm not even an attorney, and I could try that case in court, where she's violating the law again to make it to where citizens can't see under the hood. No election official, elected official, or person who does not want the people that they serve to scrutinize them cannot be trusted, period.
Are you talking about certified poll watcher? Because again, like if we're talking about security, we can't have people. Would you suggest they be in there for the counting of these ballots? Would you suggest they be in there at precincts? Because there is, I think unless someone has training and is authorized to be familiar with these processes, that also, if they're not, that could be a security concern as well, no?
Well, to your point, you're correct. The law already states that individuals cannot just wander off the street. You're correct. There are laws governing poll challengers' conduct, and there's also laws governing those who suppress poll challengers from doing their job, who can be sent to jail or pay a $1,000 fine. So the law is clear. You're absolutely correct that you can't just have some random individual walking off the street to be a poll challenger. You have to come in with the credentialed organization. So when I was a poll challenger in 2020, we had to go through training. So absolutely, the law, my point is I'm a rule of law Secretary of State. My opponent is lawless. My point is that we simply have to follow the law, like you said, to ensure that we have credentialed individuals who know what they're doing walking in, not just Joe Schmo off the street.
I think we've touched on a couple of these points, but I just want to ask, kind of all-encompassing, what would convince you that a state election was run fairly and was run securely?
That it's ran by the law. That's it. Just follow the law. Nothing, and it's interesting when we talk about voting rights. Like I said before, ballot access, ballot security, and preventing illegal ballots from being cast.
It's so crazy because her answer seems so simplistic. Just follow the law. That's all you have to do. But yet we found out in 2020, multiple states violated their own state's constitution when it came to the way they handled the elections in their states. But the courts did nothing about it. Nothing at all. So what's the point of having laws if you're not going to follow them? What's the point in having judges if the judges aren't going to enforce the laws? Does that make sense?
Oftentimes, when we talk about voting rights, we don't explore what that really means. We just throw the term around. And if my ballot, if I don't have access to the polls, then what good is an election? If my absentee ballot, we saw during the August primary about 1.4 million people vote absentee. And as I mentioned, what happened in e-courts is what they discovered during the canvass. Okay, those people marked the ballot, but their ballot wasn't tabulated. So we have to ensure that that ballot is securely handled every step of the way. We also need to prevent illegal ballots from being cast. Those three elements are necessary components of our voting rights. And as Secretary of State, I don't care what your political party is, what your religion, or anything about you. You have a constitutional right to a protected and honest election. And I will ensure that the rule of law is followed as Michigan Secretary of State.
So I will leave the link for the full interview for you to go to check out. But today is the day that we vote, and I hope that you guys would take Kristina into consideration because she sounds like a great representative, and those are the types of politicians we want in office. Anyways, you guys let me know what you think down below. What do you think of her as a candidate and what it is she had to say? Look, she didn't pick a side. She said she witnessed what she witnessed, but she's there to represent all Americans just like a representative should be. Anyways, that's it for now. I look forward to what you have to say, and I will catch you later. I'm out.